Just to start, at the beginning of the season, we talked a little bit about the rarity of having a true freshman play significant minutes, and just wanted to ask him, what has allowed Elijah to stay at the top of the depth chart now halfway through the season and maintaining a spot as someone who is new to the program?
Well, probably, in all honesty, probably the fact that Michael Moore's been out. So, Elijah has done well, and he's making headway and improvement, and he's going to be a very, very fine player. But he was good enough to move up as a freshman to a backup role at the outset of the season. So, the more playing time he gets, the better he gets, I think.
Is it just that? Would you say it's just maybe the IQ that helps him reach this point? I mean, as a freshman, of course.
Well, I think it's an accumulation of a lot of things. He's a talented young guy, runs around, he's athletic, he can change directions. He's a bright young fellow, he picks things up. So it's just right now it's at the level of needing the experience. Just more. Every repetition that he gets in practice, every rep he gets in the game is. Just adds to the strength.
Coach, in looking at Oklahoma State, what has changed for them over the last few weeks in which they've struggled so much offensively?
Well, I don't know. There's all that dialogue. I remember there was a lot of dialogue about Oklahoma struggling on offense, and they had 8,000 yards against us. So I don't buy into all that stuff. Somebody played very well defensively against them. I think they've had some injuries that have impacted them, an offensive lineman, a running back. I don't know. I don't know if they feel that they're not doing as well as they should be. They know more about that than I do. I look at them and I think they're pretty good.
Coach, what is it about Tyreek Hill that allows him to be just kind of a playmaker for them?
Well, he's the fastest man in the world, I think. That's probably what makes most of it happen. He's extremely fast. Runs 10 100 meters. That's world-class speed. So he can run.
Is there something that, just maybe promotes him to having such a good impact in his first year?
I'm not sure what that means.
Is there a certain skill set, besides the speed?
He doesn't need anything else. You just give him the ball and he outruns anybody that's on the field. That's pretty simple. He can play in the backfield. He can play as a wide receiver, so he can catch the ball. I'm worried about him throwing the ball because we're going to have to put 14 guys out there to run him down, and. So anyway, yeah, he's a good player, and he's awfully fast, and he's versatile enough to be able to play multiple positions.
Coach, you said after the game not to talk about how great the defense is, but when you look back at what the defense has been able to do game to game, and you talked about there's some inconsistency there, but just with the mentality, the mindset, the attitude, and the playmaking ability of this defense, what are your impressions, especially when you review and watch tape of what they've been able to accomplish?
Well, as I've said so many times, we've been up and down. We just haven't been as consistent as I would like to be. When we played well, we played extremely well. But we've had some dips in the road, a la Oklahoma. We played extremely well when we had to against Oklahoma, made plays when we had to, but gave up a substantial amount. So it's been up and down that way, and I'm hoping to maintain some consistency, throughout. And I think our coaches, our defensive staff, and our players, certainly want the same thing. They work diligently at it. I think what are the characteristics of our defense? I think they're we're very sound, we believe, in what we do. I think the players are very good about being where they're supposed to be the vast majority of the time, doing, as we say, doing what they're supposed to be doing. So they're there's a discipline there that's really significant and important. It's important in our program and certainly important in playing defense. You know, I think fundamentally we have just gotten better and better and better, and I think there's a tough-mindedness, you know, that permeates the vast majority of our defense as well.
I know there's more games to go, but being ranked in the top 20 in both scoring defense and total defense is something that when people get their game notes, that's one of the first things they look at. What kind of credit is that to what Tom Hayes and the defensive staff have been able to do at a time when teams can put up so many points and, you know, so many yards?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a great tribute, and you know, just as you indicated, I mean, talk about having a shutout or, you know, holding somebody to 0 points in a ball game doesn't happen in college football because offenses are so prolific in this day and age for a variety of different reasons. But you know, so to be able to counteract that trend, it takes, you know, a lot of intelligence, a lot of hard work, and certainly, you know, some continuity in what's going on.
Do you buy the guys dinner after something like that, after a shutout?
Are you kidding me?
Coach, I want to ask you about the release here that came out today about the opening of the residence halls. How did that come about, you and John doing that?
Well, it was just the idea that, you know, the scheduling, if you will, and I say scheduling, I mean everybody's going to do it, but playing over that Thanksgiving, you know, that we're hard pressed to, you know, feel as though we would have a significant crowd of our student body because of the cost of opening the dorms, that they wouldn't have a place to stay if they came back for the ball games. You know, I know they'd want to come back for ball games. I think a vast majority of them that can and could, and they're close enough. But with the dorms being closed, it took an additional amount of money to open them up. So we.
I'm curious, so in your schedule, how did you become aware of this situation?
Well, John brought it to my attention. John or Clint, one of the two. Yeah.
Did they try to get you to pay the whole thing first?
No, they didn't. Yeah, I know.
Other questions?
Go ahead, Brent.
Is there a certain thing or a certain characteristic of Mike's programs at Oklahoma State that you really believe has allowed him to be such a mainstay in Stillwater?
Gosh, I don't know. I haven't really thought about it that way. Other than, I mean, he's a very fine coach. He's got a very fine staff. You know, they're you know, what they do offensively and defensively is very, very sound. I think they've done a nice job. If I'm just trying to think back a little bit, I think they've done a nice job of being able to play to the talent and coach to the talent that exists, you know, in the program. By that I mean, you know, play to the strengths of players that they have in the program. Yeah, but I really haven't, outside of that, haven't thought much about that element.
Coach, when you excuse me, when you look at your running game and in the first drive of the game, you guys were able to move the ball very effectively, and it kind of tapered off a little towards the latter part of the game. What did you see as maybe the cause for that?
Well, it wasn't necessarily the latter part of the game. You know, I mean, we've played 28 minutes of the first half and only have 2 field goals. So, you know, my concern was that we, you know, that we were not able to advance the ball successfully. You know, when we got into that proverbial red zone, and we were there a substantial number of times, and just didn't have success down there for a variety of different reasons. And you know, part of it is, you know, the easy out is to say execution, but sometimes we didn't get the right things on the field, you know, as well. So you know, and you take, you know, we had one instance that we're, you know, we've got the ball on the 2-yard line, 1st and goal after penalty, and can't get the ball in the end zone, have to kick a field goal. Now that's not good. So there's a number of things that that are concerning about that, I think, as much as anything. Now, as far as the collective running game, if that's what you're addressing, it's not the collective aspect of it. There's certain times when we do just fine, but it goes back, like I was talking about defensively. It's the consistency of it and the element that we haven't been, even though you look in the conference statistics or national statistics, and Kansas State will rank high in red zone offense, so to speak. But still, that's not. I don't think we're doing as well as we need to, and I think that's one element, of the running game that I have some concerns about.
Coach, can you just talk about Dylan Schellenberg's progression through the season, kind of to this point?
Dylan is John Truman Jr. He's that guy like I was talking about a moment ago. He just epitomizes being in the right place at the right time. He's a bright young guy. He reacts well. He doesn't. He can play fast because he can react fast, process information very well. Just very steady player.
Coach, you mentioned a couple of weeks ago sometimes we put too much into numbers, but I'm curious, based on what Deontay Burton did this past weekend, how encouraged are you about how he is coming along, and how is he playing right now, would you say?
Well, I think he's playing well. He's again, he does a nice job of kind of helping direct our defense. He's an athletic young guy. He can, his experience has allowed him to get better and better at being able to process the information and get himself where he needs to be. My biggest concern was, last week he puts, interception balls on the ground, and that had an impact on the outcome. When I say the outcome, not who wins or who loses, but the breathing room, so to speak, because they were both at midfield, or better. But he is, he's playing well and has provided some leadership back there as well.
Is there difficulty in doing drills and stuff to help try to teach that, just being what it is, or is there something that you can do with tips and that kind of stuff?
In regards to?
Well, like with him having a couple of opportunities for interceptions and.
Well, you work at it. It's a mindset as much as anything. It's the mental aspect of it. He's got good hands. He can catch the ball as well as any receiver that we have. So it has to be in terms of the discipline and the focus at the time of the throw in order to make those plays. So we just have to put him into more of those situations and make him more cognizant of it during the course of the week. He probably gets a little lax in that respect during the course of the week, and just needs to step. And in fact, last night he did. He probably had 4 or 5 interceptions in our practice last night. Didn't put any on the ground, so he was into it.
Coach, Deontay Burton had a pretty solid night. Had over 50 yards, I believe, catching. How has his progression been so far in his time at K-State? What do you see from him going forward?
Well, I think he'll continue to get better and continue to evolve as a very fine player. He's got the physical stature to enhance that position. Has good height, can be a physical player, runs well. He's had he's made he started here and he's here, but it was one of these kind of roads getting there. So it's up and down. So like so many things that I've said, we're just hoping for the consistency and working towards that continued progression on a consistent basis. But he is and will be a good player.
There's also been a lot of narrative with your teams about your use of kids from Kansas, but going more specific than that, you've had kids from Manhattan, Junction City, Riley County. How important is it to have kids that are literally on your back doorstep, providing a significant role?
Well, I think it's great. You know, I love it. I mean, you think about the people that fill the stands out here every Saturday. I mean, they come from all over, but the vast majority of them come from the areas you're talking about. By that, I mean the state of Kansas, and you know, the closer you are, the more apt you are to be in the stands. And fans love seeing, you know, young guys who, you know, played at the high school in and around their area. That's a extra element that you know, enhances their interest and makes them proud, you know, of their high schools and young people. So it's, you know, it's a great benefit for you know, our fan base. And you know, I've always had a propensity for, you know, and not that young people from any place in the country can't be valued young people. I mean, young people of a tremendous value system, and people that will work hard and roll their sleeves up, and blue collar type guys, etc. But you know, in the Midwest, you know, that's kind of what the Midwest is noted for, as we all know. And you know, so many of the young people that come here, many that you've mentioned today, are those kind of individuals. So they enhance the program. You know, it's not that we're, you know, providing free lunches or anything. I mean, these are guys that you know, earn the right, deserve the right, and have that you know, that the kind of values, I guess, as you say so often, that really fit our program and help our program.
I was curious, when you think back to the Curry Sexton that stepped foot on campus here as a freshman, how would you compare him to the guy who's playing right now, and how much do you think he's improved?
Well, he has gotten better, but you know, you know, to ask me to, you know, go back and think specifically is not an easy thing for me to do. But I don't, you know, as I reflect back, you know, I think I saw the same thing then, you know, that we see now, just kind of better at it, you know, because of gaining the experience. I think he was a bright young guy at that time. I think he had a good sense of the game, you know, at that time. He could run routes well at that time, learned rapidly. And I don't, you know, had excellent hands. So I don't think he's dramatically different, other than he's just better at each one of those skills.
After the game, regardless of the game, players talk about how each the next game is going to be the biggest one, and even when you face Oklahoma and then Texas and now Oklahoma State, and Oklahoma State is unranked, how well is this team at adhering to that policy and the maturity that they bring to the table? Because human nature would dictate that, you know, that quote unquote trap game that people talk about. How are they at avoiding that mindset?
Well, you know, we've addressed that so many times. As it relates to Oklahoma State, you know, the first ball game of the season against #1 team in the nation, who, if I were to look, probably find they're still there. I mean, that was a 6-point ball game. That's anybody's ball game. They were, I don't know what they were at the highest point. They were 16th or something in the country. So, you know, what they're capable of doing is being as good as anybody. And you know, what our dialogue has always been that, you know, there isn't, you know, out of 120 teams in whatever there are, there's probably, you know, I don't know what the number would be, but I'm going to guess at saying 110. Anybody could beat anybody anytime, you know, just depending on how they prepared and played. And that's always been our approach, as you well know. And I think our players really understand it. They've experienced it, you know, in so many different ways. And so, you know, when they have the experience, if it's just me saying that, You don't know how that's going to come across. But coupled with the idea that they've experienced some of that in so many ways, and they see it. I mean, they're not oblivious to what's going on in college football around the country, and they see it happen day in and day out. So, if there's any intelligence there whatsoever, which I believe there is, they understand that, there are no walks in the park.
What is the motivation in not letting the same team beat you twice? Meaning, this team a year ago had struggles and lost by 4 at Oklahoma State, and it strikes me this team hasn't lost to the same opponent twice between 2013 and 2014.
Well, that's not something we spend any time, addressing for the same reason that I've said so many times that, every year is different, and what happened in the past has no impact on how we prepare and play for this particular ball game. Doesn't mean that we don't study, what took place in previous year's ball games, but by and large, it's about now, and that's the way we deal with it.
In your run defense, your secondary seems to have been really effective. You've got a pretty physical group back there. Is that especially important when you're playing with 5 defensive backs? And how do you think that this group has impacted your run defense?
Well, they've done well. Being physical is one thing, but the most important thing is that you can see and process information appropriately. If you make mistakes, then you end up tackling the guy that doesn't have the ball, and the guy that's got the ball is the guy that's standing behind where you were. So that's where they have to be really good, is making the right decisions about when to defend the run and when not to.
Have they been, as a group, pretty good tacklers, would you say?
With tackling, they've made progress. They've gotten better. Still not totally where you'd like for them to be, but throughout the course of the season, they took a little bit of a step back at Oklahoma, but last week they were a little bit better, and in previous weeks they had gotten better.
Similar to how it was for Ryan last year with his sack numbers, a lot of attention is certainly flying Jonathan's direction as being yet another walk-on that's succeeding on a rather big stage. But when you take someone like a Jonathan and add maybe the other walk-ons to the mix, how much of your coaching for these guys goes into what's happening now in this season, and how much of it goes into reminding them how they got to this point in their careers?
Well, I don't think we spend any time reminding them how they got here as it relates to whether they were a scholarship player or a non-scholarship player, if I understand the question right. I mean, it's certainly we have dialogue about, if you're playing well, there's a reason behind it, and the progress that you have made over the course of a season or 2 seasons or whatever period of time you've been on the field, based on how you practice and how you prepare and what your mindset is, about all of those things, accepting the responsibility to make a commitment to those types of things. Yes, from that standpoint, we can address, if you're playing well and it's been built up over a period of time, what's the reasoning behind it? How did it take place? And it took place with, the hard work and the commitment and et cetera, all those kinds of things.
Coach, Oklahoma State's defense, especially the defensive line, has been pretty good with getting to the quarterback, and they average about 3 sacks a game. How big is that matchup between their defensive line and your offensive line?
Well, they lead the conference in that respect, and which in a conference which the ball is thrown around quite a bit. So, it tells you they've been productive and they've had opportunities to do it. It's it's always a concern. It's a concern no matter what their numbers happen to be. They take the defensive end that they have, who's leads our conference right now. I think 8+ sacks. In the 5 ball games, had 5 of them in one game. I mean, that's a major output. But again, it boils back to us. I mean, the role of our protectors is, don't allow that to happen, and that has to do with our offensive line, our tight ends, our backs, and our quarterback in regards to some of the things that he does as well. So, it's always a concern week in and week out. This week's no different.
Coach, I know your attention's on Oklahoma State, and then you'll move on to TCU and West Virginia. But one of the biggest games in the country this weekend is TCU at West Virginia. It's taken those two teams 3 years maybe to get up to speed in the Big 12, but now they're certainly contenders in this conference. What does it mean for this league to have those two programs playing this kind of quality football and now on a national stage?
I don't think in my mind, I don't think there was ever any doubt that they would be, as good as anybody in the conference. And, it goes back to what I was saying a while ago, in this day and age, anybody, at any time. But I think it is significant, as you brought it up, Fitz, it is significant in our conference because, when we went from 12 to 10 and we pick up, the two schools that we pick up, there seemed to be a lot of dialogue about, how much did that weaken our conference, and indeed it hasn't. And it's in reality, it's made it a stronger conference. It's been said so many times, top to bottom, might be the strongest conference in the country. I don't know. I haven't studied all the other conferences. I don't want to get into that debate, but I do know it is it really is a strong conference, high to low, and they've certainly added to it considerably.
Coach, your offense had a time of possession last weekend was almost 40 minutes. How much is that playing a factor in terms of breaking the other team's rhythm offensively, and how important will that be this weekend against Oklahoma State?
I think it's important every week, and I can only say for us. That may not be true for other teams. Some teams have, a very minimal possession time, but they're scoring in 35 seconds every possession. So that's one way to do it. But it benefits us to be able to have a decent advantage in regards to possession time. For a variety of different reasons, it's beneficial to your defense as well as being beneficial to your offense, and field position's big in regard to that. So.
Given his success rate since coming on as kicker, how much how high would you say your confidence is in Matthew right now?
Well, I think everybody's confident in him. I don't think anybody hasn't been. It's easy to say, the confidence has grown throughout the, 3 or 4 games that he's, performed in. But, we wouldn't have put him out there if we didn't have confidence in his capabilities. And so I look at him right now no different than I did, 2 games ago or, whenever. He puts him through the uprights. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to be 100% all his life. But he's doing well. But we anticipated that he would, and we expected him to do well, and I think he did too.
One more question. Coach, before every game on that jumbotron out there, you got 50,000 fans that are cheering because you get on the jumbotron, and you're saying the greatest opportunity in college football history exists here today. I'm just curious what this honor being considered for the College Football Hall of Fame after this long path that you've had here in the Little Apple, what that means to Bill Snyder.
Well, it is an honor. It's not something, that's not a major thing in my life, honors, etc. But it does mean something, and I'd be, I can't even find the words to say what I would be if I didn't, really have some feelings about it, and I certainly do. I appreciate the opportunity just to be, recommended or whatever the case may be. But it's probably not too hard to recommend somebody either. So I think last count there's probably 500 people on the ballot. So I don't know where that goes. But I'm pleased and honored, but I don't get caught off in it.